The metallic hull gleamed under the harsh Antarctic sun, its iridescent surface shifting between emerald and sapphire as Captain Valera Nystrom approached. The vessel, nearly half a kilometer long, had been entombed in ice for what preliminary scans suggested was over 18,000 years. Nystrom's breath frosted in the frigid air as she pressed her gloved hand against the hull, feeling an unexpected warmth radiating through her thermal gear. "It's still active," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling polar wind. Dr. Kazimir Orlov, the expedition's xenotech specialist, approached with his scanning equipment. His weathered face creased with concentration as he studied the readings. "This can't be right," he muttered, recalibrating the device. "The energy signature? Captain, this is consistent with Class G technology." Nystrom turned sharply. "Class G? That's impossible. No human has ever—" "Not human," Orlov interrupted, his eyes wide behind his protective goggles. "Class G is the designation our theoretical physicists gave to technology that manipulates quantum fields at the subatomic level. The kind of tech that could enable faster-than-light travel." Lieutenant Eshe Ibarra joined them, her dark eyes flitting between her superiors and the gleaming hull. "Permission to speak freely, Captain?" "Always, Lieutenant. We need to inform the Coalition immediately. If this is truly Class G technology, it changes everything. Our understanding of physics, our place in the universe, everything." Nystrom nodded grimly. "Establish a secure channel to Coalition Command. Priority Alpha." Within hours, the site was swarming with Coalition security forces and the brightest scientific minds Earth could muster. A makeshift research facility sprouted around the ship like metallic fungi, complete with state-of-the-art laboratories and defensive perimeters. Professor Ixora Mahabir, Earth's foremost expert on theoretical xenotechnology, arrived the following day. Her reputation for brilliance was matched only by her eccentricity, evident in her mismatched thermal gear and the old-fashioned notebook she carried everywhere. "Magnificent," she breathed, approaching the ship with childlike wonder. "Do you understand what we found? This is like cavemen discovering nuclear fusion." The entrance to the vessel had been located, a seamless doorway that responded to specific frequency emissions. Inside, the corridors were surprisingly Earth-like in proportion, suggesting the builders had been humanoid in form. The lighting activated automatically, casting everything in a soft azure glow. Mahabir led the first exploration team, with Nystrom's security detail close behind. The ship's interior defied conventional design logic, spaces that seemed to fold into themselves, materials that shifted properties under different forms of interaction. In what appeared to be the command center, Mahabir discovered the navigation system. "It's still functional," she announced, her fingers hovering over controls that responded to proximity rather than touch. "And look at this, star charts, thousands of them." Nystrom peered over her shoulder. "Can you read any of it?" "Not yet, but the numerical system appears to be base 12. Given time—" The ship suddenly hummed to life around them, displays activating in cascading sequence. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the room, a star map that zoomed outward to reveal the Milky Way, then further still to show multiple galaxies. A pulsing light marked their current location. "It's detected our presence," Orlov whispered. "It's awakening." On the main display, symbols began scrolling rapidly, coalescing into a single message that repeated. Mahabir's hands trembled as she attempted a rough translation using her portable computer. "It's a beacon," she finally said, her voice hollow with realization. "The ship is sending a signal." "To whom?" Nystrom demanded. Mahabir looked up, her face ashen. "To its owners." Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication array emitted a burst of energy that their instruments couldn't even properly measure. The message had been sent, traveling faster than light itself. Earth had just announced its presence to the cosmos. and something out there was listening. 3 days after the ship's beacon activated, the Coalition Security Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 12 Earth nations gathered in Geneva, their faces grim as they reviewed the data transmitted from Antarctica. Admiral Ryota Tadakoro, head of the Coalition Defense Force, stood before the assembled delegates. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected multiple objects approaching our solar system at velocities that defy our current understanding of physics. He gestured to the holographic display showing the trajectories. At their current speed, they will reach Earth in approximately 48 hours. Chancellor Eloise Mbeki of the African Federation leaned forward. Are they responding to the beacon? All evidence suggests so, Tadokoro confirmed. The approaching vessels are emitting energy signatures similar to the Antarctic ship. Then we're dealing with a first contact scenario, said Director Finola O'Neill of Earth Intelligence. The question is, are they coming to retrieve their property or to investigate who activated it? The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity had never encountered extraterrestrial intelligence before, despite centuries of searching the stars. Now they were coming to Earth, and no one knew their intentions. Back at the Antarctic site, Professor Mahabir had made a breakthrough. Working with linguist Dr. Dai-Yu Liang, she had begun deciphering the ship's database. The vessel belonged to a civilization called the Valkyrie, Mahabir explained during the emergency briefing. From what we can gather, they were explorers, scientists, and apparently, they visited Earth during the last ice age. Why did they leave their ship behind? Asked Nystrom. I'm not certain, Mahabir replied, but there are references to something called the Convergence, possibly some kind of cosmic event that forced a rapid evacuation. The ship was deliberately hidden, not abandoned. And now its rightful owners are coming to reclaim it, Orlov concluded. The next 48 hours were a flurry of preparation. Military forces worldwide were placed on high alert, while scientists worked frantically to understand as much of the Valkyrie technology as possible before the arrival. When the moment finally came, it was both more spectacular and more terrifying than anyone had anticipated. The Valkyrie ships didn't gradually approach. They simply appeared in Earth orbit, transitioning from faster-than-light travel with a cascade of cerulean energy that briefly outshone the sun. 7 vessels, each at least 3 times the size of the Antarctic ship, arranged themselves in a perfect heptagon formation over the planet. Their design was similar to the buried ship, but more elegant, more evolved, like comparing a modern sports car to its century-old predecessor. Humanity collectively held its breath as worldwide communications were momentarily disrupted, then restored with a message being broadcast on all frequencies in multiple Earth languages. People of Earth, the transmission began, the voice artificially modulated but distinctly non-human in its cadences. We are the Valkyrie Conclave. You have activated an ancient beacon. You have discovered knowledge that is not yours. Prepare to receive our delegation. Resistance would be unproductive. The message repeated 3 times before ceasing. Within minutes, a smaller vessel detached from the formation and began its descent toward Antarctica. Coalition forces had established a perimeter around the excavation site, though few harbored illusions about their ability to stop beings with such advanced technology. Captain Nystrom stood at the designated landing area, joined by Professor Mahabir, Admiral Tadokoro, and a hastily assembled first contact team. The Valkyrie shuttle was surprisingly elegant, a teardrop-shaped craft. That settled on the ice with barely a sound. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then a section of the hull seemed to dissolve, revealing 3 figures. They were humanoid but unmistakably alien, tall and slender with iridescent skin that shifted colors like their ships. Their eyes were large and multifaceted, reminiscent of insect eyes, but expressing an unsettling intelligence. They wore no visible protection against the Antarctic cold. The central figure stepped forward, regarding the humans with an unreadable expression. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move. Instead, the words seemed to form directly in the minds of the listeners. "I am Emissary Vexillorian of the Valkyrie Conclave," the being projected. "You have disturbed that which does not belong to you. The vessel you have found is Valkyrie property. You will relinquish it immediately." Admiral Tadokoro stepped forward. "We welcome you to Earth, Emissary. I am Admiral Ryota Tadokoro of the Earth Coalition. We discovered the vessel by accident and had no way of knowing it belonged to your people." "Ignorance does not negate transgression," Vexillorian responded coldly. "The technology within that vessel is beyond your comprehension and dangerous in your hands. We will retrieve it and depart. Your cooperation is appreciated, but not required." Professor Mahabir couldn't contain herself. "The ship has been here for 18,000 years. If it was so important, why abandon it for so long?" The emissary's skin flushed a deep violet. "Our reasons are our own. The Class G ship contains technologies that could destroy your world if improperly handled. For your own protection, stand aside." Captain Nystrom noticed something in the emissary's tone. Not concern, but something closer to urgency, perhaps even fear. "Before you reclaim your property," she said carefully, "might we discuss an exchange of knowledge? We have much to learn from each other." Vexillorian's gaze fixed on her with unsettling intensity. "You mistake our purpose, human. We did not come to exchange. We came to retrieve what is ours and ensure it does not fall into unsuitable hands." The emissary made a gesture, and the ice around the buried ship began to vibrate. The coalition forces raised their weapons instinctively, triggering a swift response from the Valkyrie, energy shields materializing around their delegation. "This action is not negotiable," Vexillorian stated. "The vessel returns with us." As tensions escalated at the Antarctic site, Dr. Orloff made a critical discovery within the Class G ship's database. Working feverishly in a secluded section he'd been exploring, he found what appeared to be a log entry, one that had been deliberately hidden from the main system. "Professor Mahabir," he called over the comm system, his voice tight with urgency. "I've found something that changes everything." Mahabir, still at the standoff with the Valkyrie, couldn't leave immediately. "What is it, Casimir?" "This ship. It's not Valkyrie. At least, not originally." Orlov's words came rapidly as he translated. "It was salvaged. No, stolen. The Valkyrie found it damaged and repaired it, but they didn't build it." This revelation stunned Mahabir. She glanced at the Valkyrie emissary, who was growing increasingly impatient as Earth's military leaders stalled for time. Making a split-second decision, she approached Captain Nystrom and whispered the information. Nystrom's eyes widened slightly before her face returned to its professional mask. She stepped forward, addressing Vexillorian directly. "Emissary, before we proceed, I believe we should discuss the true origin of the vessel." The reaction was immediate. Vexillorian's skin shifted to a deep crimson, and the two other Valkyrie moved closer in a protective formation. "There is nothing to discuss," the emissary projected, but the mental voice had lost some of its composure. "The technology is dangerous and must be returned to proper custodianship." "The technology isn't yours," Nystrom pressed. "Our scientists have discovered records indicating the vessel was appropriated by the Valkyrie. You didn't build it." For a moment, silence fell over the gathered assembly. Then Vexillorian's posture changed, becoming more rigid. "The origins are irrelevant," the emissary finally responded. "The Valkyrie Conclave has maintained custodianship of all surviving Class G technology for millennia. We alone understand its proper use and dangers." Admiral Tadokoro seized on this opening. Then there are others who built this technology, others who might have a legitimate claim. Inside the ship, Orlov continued his frantic research, feeding information to Mahabir. The hidden logs revealed a startling truth. The Class G ships had been created by a now-extinct civilization called the Progenitors, who had seeded countless worlds with life before vanishing from the galaxy. The ship has a genetic scanner, Orlov reported. It's been analyzing us since we entered. That's why it activated. It recognized something in our DNA. Mahabir's scientific curiosity overcame her caution. Emissary Vexillorian, were you aware that the progenitors visited Earth? That they may have influenced human evolution? The emissary's multifaceted eyes narrowed to slits. You understand nothing of galactic history, human. The progenitors' legacy is the Conclave's burden to bear. Their technology cannot fall into primitive hands. Yet the ship responded to us, Mahabir countered. It recognized something in our genetic makeup. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vexillorian's features. One of the other Valkyrie leaned close, communicating privately. Lieutenant Ibarra, monitoring energy readings, suddenly called out, "Captain, the buried ship is powering up its systems independently." All eyes turned toward the excavation site where the ancient vessel was now pulsing with azure light, ice melting rapidly around its hull. The ground trembled as buried engines activated. For the first time in millennia, Vexillorian's composure shattered. "Contain it immediately!" The emissary commanded the other Valkyrie, who produced devices from their suits and aimed them at the ship. But it was too late. A holographic projection erupted from the ship, expanding until it towered over the gathered humans and Valkyrie alike. It depicted a humanoid figure, not unlike humans in basic form, but with distinct differences. 6-fingered hands, a more elongated skull, and eyes with vertical pupils. When it spoke, the words came in multiple languages simultaneously, including one that made the Valkyrie physically recoil. Genetic recognition confirmed. Human genome contains progenitor markers. Inheritance protocol activated. Vexillorian turned to the humans, mental voice now laced with what could only be described as dread. "You must not listen. You don't understand what's happening." The hologram continued impassively. "To the descendants of progenitor seed world 3429, designation Earth. We left this vessel as your inheritance. The Valkyrie were instructed to guide your development until you reached technological maturity. They have failed in this sacred duty." Chaos erupted as the Valkyrie attempted to shut down the message, and Earth's military personnel moved to protect their scientists. Above them, the Valkyrie fleet began repositioning, energy signatures indicating weapons coming online. In the confusion, Captain Nystrom made a bold decision. With Mahabir and Orlov, she slipped away from the confrontation and raced toward the now active ship. If the vessel truly recognized human DNA, perhaps it would grant them access and answers before the Valkyrie could intervene. As they approached, a doorway opened that hadn't been visible before. Inside, the ship's systems were fully active, displays showing information that seemed to flow directly into their consciousness rather than requiring visual interpretation. "It's a legacy," Mahabir whispered in awe. "The progenitors didn't just visit Earth. They helped create us. And they left this for when we were ready." The ship's primary console activated at Nystrom's approach. "Captain Valera Nystrom," it addressed. Her specifically, "As the first human to make physical contact with this vessel, you have been designated custodian. Would you accept stewardship of the legacy ark?" Outside, the confrontation between Earth's forces and the Valkyrie was escalating toward conflict. Time was running out. Nystrom met Mahabir's and Orlov's eyes, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination she felt. Humanity's future hung in the balance. "I accept," she said firmly. The ship responded immediately, interfacing directly with her neural patterns. Knowledge began flowing into her mind. Not all at once, but in a controlled stream she could comprehend. The truth about humanity's origins, the progenitor's plan, and most importantly, why the Valkyrie were so desperate to reclaim the vessel. It wasn't just technology they feared humans would misuse. It was the truth that would upend the Valkyrie's position in the galactic order. The Antarctic sky erupted with energy as the Valkyrie ships fired warning shots, superheating the air and melting vast sheets of ice. Earth's military responded by activating their most advanced defensive systems, a pitiful display compared to the aliens' technology, but a statement of resolve nonetheless. Inside the Legacy Ark, as the progenitor vessel called itself, Captain Nystrom struggled to process the torrent of information flowing into her consciousness. The ship was doing more than communicating. It was awakening dormant neural pathways in her brain, triggering evolutionary adaptations that had lain hidden in human DNA for thousands of generations. "They're trying to force their way in," Orlov reported, monitoring the ship's external sensors. "The Valkyrie have surrounded us." Mahabir was interfacing with another console, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is remarkable. The ship contains a complete historical record of the progenitor's civilization. They weren't just advanced. They fundamentally understood the universe in ways we've barely begun to grasp." Nystrom focused on the tactical situation. Through her new connection with the ship, she understood its capabilities far better than before. "The Valkyrie won't risk destroying this vessel. It's too valuable. But they'll do whatever it takes to prevent us from leaving with it." "Leaving?" Orlov questioned. "You mean to take the ship?" "That's what it was designed for," Nystrom replied with newfound certainty. "The progenitors left vessels like this on worlds they seeded, intended to help their descendants join the galactic community when they were ready. And the Valkyrie intercepted ours," Mahabir concluded. "They've been suppressing developing civilizations, maintaining their technological advantage. Outside, emissary Vexilorian had dispensed with diplomacy. The Valkyrie were now utilizing specialized equipment to create a containment field around the Legacy Ark. Admiral Tadokoro had ordered Earth's forces to maintain defensive positions only. Any offensive action against the vastly superior Valkyrie would be suicide. "Captain," Lieutenant Ibarra's voice came through the ship's communication system, "the Valkyrie are broadcasting globally. They're claiming the ship contains a dangerous pathogen that could wipe out humanity. They're positioning themselves as protectors." Nystrom accessed the external feeds through her neural link. The Valkyrie message was being transmitted worldwide, causing panic and confusion. It was a clever tactic, turn Earth's population against the very legacy meant for them. "We need to counter their narrative," she decided. "Professor, can we broadcast using the ship's systems?" "Yes, but—" Mahabir hesitated. "Captain, the information you've received, are you certain it's accurate? Could this be manipulation of another kind?" It was a fair question. Nystrom had asked herself the same thing as alien knowledge poured into her mind. But something about it resonated with absolute truth. Like remembering rather than learning. "I'm certain," she said firmly. "The progenitors weren't conquerors or manipulators. They were dying out, and wanted their knowledge to live on through the species they helped evolve. The Legacy Ark contains technological knowledge, yes, but also philosophical, ethical frameworks for using it responsibly." Orlov looked up from his console. "The containment field is almost complete. If they succeed, we'll be cut off from all external communication and eventually forced out." Nystrom made her decision. "Initiate a global broadcast. I'll address Earth directly." The Legacy Ark's systems responded instantly to her command. Satellite networks worldwide were temporarily overridden as the progenitor technology established a direct communication channel to every connected device on the planet. Nystrom stood straight, her image now being transmitted to billions. "People of Earth, I am Captain Valera Nystrom of the Coalition Exploratory Division. What I'm about to tell you will change our understanding of human history forever." With clarity and conviction, she explained the truth, how the progenitors had helped guide early hominid evolution, accelerating humanity's development while preserving their free will, how they had left the legacy arc as an inheritance, to be claimed when humanity reached sufficient technological sophistication, and how the Valkyrie had appointed themselves gatekeepers of progenitor technology, restricting access to maintain their dominance. "The ship you see behind me belongs to humanity by right of inheritance," she concluded. "The Valkyrie came not to protect us, but to maintain their power over us and other developing worlds. The choice now facing Earth isn't about technology. It's about our sovereignty as a species." The transmission ended abruptly as the Valkyrie completed their containment field. Inside the ship, alarms sounded as systems began to lose power. "They're draining the ship's energy," Orlov reported grimly. Nystrom closed her eyes, accessing deeper functions through her neural link. "There's a defensive protocol, but activating it means escalation." Mahabir placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever you decide, we stand with you." Outside, something unexpected was happening. Earth's population, rather than panicking at the revelation of their engineered origins, was responding with unified purpose. Millions were taking to communications networks, declaring support for claiming humanity's legacy. The Coalition Security Council, emboldened by public opinion, issued a formal demand for the Valkyrie to withdraw. Vexlorian's response was transmitted directly into the ship. "This defiance is futile, Captain Nystrom. Your species is not ready for progenitor technology. The consequences could be catastrophic." "That's not your decision to make," Nystrom replied. "The progenitors chose us as their heirs. We have the right to determine our own future." The emissary's tone hardened. "Then you leave us no choice." The containment field began to contract, crushing inward with irresistible force. Systems throughout the ship started failing as the pressure mounted. With no alternatives remaining, Nystrom activated the Legacy Arc's defensive protocol. Knowledge flowed through her neural link, guiding her actions with ancestral precision. "Brace yourselves," she warned her companions. The ship shuddered, then released a pulse of energy unlike anything Earth's scientists had ever recorded. The containment field shattered as the pulse expanded outward, temporarily neutralizing all Valkyrie technology within its radius. For a brief moment, the most advanced species in the known galaxy found themselves technologically helpless. And in that moment, the true confrontation began. The energy pulse from the Legacy Arc swept across Antarctica and beyond, its effects rippling through the atmosphere in concentric waves of shimmering light. Around the world, communication systems flickered momentarily before stabilizing with unprecedented clarity. Something fundamental had changed in Earth's technological infrastructure. Inside the vessel, Nystrom, Mahabir, and Orlov watched in amazement as new systems activated. Holographic displays materialized throughout the command center, showing real-time data from across the planet. "Captain," Orlov said, his voice hushed with awe. "The ship didn't just disable the Valkyrie technology. It's interfacing with Earth's communications network, upgrading it." Mahabir's fingers danced across a console as she analyzed the incoming data. "It's more than that." The pulse contained a data package, compressed progenitor knowledge being distributed to research centers worldwide. Basic principles of Class G technology, enough for humanity to begin understanding without being overwhelmed. Outside, the Valkyrie ships were regaining functionality, but slower than expected. The progenitor pulse had affected their systems on a fundamental level. On the ground, Emissary Vexlorian and the delegation stood motionless, their neural implants temporarily compromised. Admiral Tadakoro seized the opportunity, ordering Earth forces to establish a protective perimeter around the Legacy Arc. For the first time since the Valkyrie arrived, Humans held a tactical advantage, however temporary. "This changes nothing," Vexillorian communicated once their systems recovered enough for basic function. "The Conclave will not permit a developing species to possess Class G technology." Nystrom emerged from the ship, facing the emissary directly. "You misunderstand the situation, emissary. This isn't about permission." Through her neural link with the Legacy Arc, Nystrom now understood truths about the galaxy that no human had known before. The Valkyrie weren't the dominant species they portrayed themselves to be. They were merely the most aggressive in exploiting progenitor technology found throughout the galaxy. The Conclave has suppressed dozens of developing civilizations. She continued, harvesting progenitor artifacts while preventing others from accessing their rightful inheritance. But that wasn't the progenitor's intention. Vexillorian's skin shifted to a deep indigo, a sign of agitation. "The progenitors are gone. Their intentions died with them." "Not entirely," Nystrom countered. "They encoded their will into the legacy, arcs. Each vessel contains knowledge tailored to the specific evolutionary path of its designated heirs. The technology responds to our DNA because it was designed for humans specifically. Above them, the Valkyrie fleet had regrouped, weapon systems coming back online. Earth faced potential annihilation if the confrontation escalated further. Yet Nystrom sensed hesitation in the Valkyrie command structure. Something had changed. "Professor," Mahabir emerged from the ship, carrying a small device retrieved from the Legacy Arc's archives. "We've activated the beacon," she announced. Vexillorian's reaction was immediate and violent. "You fool! Do you comprehend what you've done?" "We do," Nystrom confirmed. "We've announced humanity's ascension to the galactic community and our claim to progenitor status under the ancient accords." This revelation sent shockwaves through the Valkyrie delegation. The ancient accords, a set of principles governing relations between advanced civilizations, were considered sacred even by the Conclave's standards. If humans could prove legitimate progenitor lineage, the Valkyrie could not legally prevent their development. "Impossible," Vexillorian protested, but with less conviction. "No new progenitor species has been confirmed in over 10,000 years." "Because the Conclave has systematically suppressed them," Orlov stated, joining his colleagues. "We've accessed the Legacy Arc's records. The Valkyrie discovered our ship 18,000 years ago, recognized its purpose, and buried it to prevent humanity's advancement. You violated your own most sacred principles." The accusation hung in the air as coalition forces and Valkyrie alike processed its implications. If true, it represented not just interference with humanity's development, but a fundamental betrayal of galactic law. Lieutenant Ibarra, monitoring communications, suddenly called out, "Multiple objects detected entering the solar system. Configuration unknown. Definitely not Valkyrie." The Legacy Arc's systems confirmed the readings. The beacon had been answered, and more quickly than anyone, human or Valkyrie, had anticipated. New players were entering the confrontation. 3. Vessels appeared in Earth orbit, using technology that made the Valkyrie ships seem primitive by comparison. They were massive and organic in appearance, more like living creatures than constructed vessels. Their hulls shimmered with colors beyond human visual perception, visible only through the Legacy Arc's enhanced sensory systems. A transmission reached Earth on frequencies never before detected by human technology. Through her neural link, Nystrom understood it perfectly. "We are the custodians," the message proclaimed. "We recognize the activation of Legacy Arc 3429. The Progenitor Inheritance Protocol has been initiated. All species will stand down and respect the ascension process." The Aix Valkyrie fleet immediately adopted a defensive posture, weapons powering down. Emissary Vexillorian's demeanor changed entirely, shifting from arrogance to something approaching fear. "Who are they?" Admiral Tadokoro demanded. "The true guardians of progenitor legacy," Nystrom explained, knowledge flowing through her enhanced consciousness. While the Valkyrie conclave has been playing at galactic dominance, the custodians have been watching, waiting for legitimate heirs to claim their inheritance. A smaller vessel detached from one of the custodian ships, descending toward Antarctica. Its design defied human engineering principles, yet somehow felt intuitively right to observers, as if it represented a path human technology might have, naturally taken under different circumstances. As the vessel landed, its hull seamlessly reconfigured to form an entrance. From within emerged beings that bore striking resemblances to the progenitor hologram they had seen earlier, but with clear, evolutionary divergences, suggesting they too were inheritors rather than the original progenitors themselves. The custodians are representatives of the first successful progenitor-heir species, Mahabir whispered, understanding dawning through her connection with the legacy arc. They've achieved what the progenitors intended, technological advancement, guided by ethical wisdom. The lead custodian approached, regarding humans and Valkyrie alike, with eyes that reflected ancient knowledge. When it spoke, its words resonated directly in the minds of all present. Humanity has awakened to its legacy, the custodian announced. The Valkyrie conclave will withdraw from this system immediately. Their interference has been documented and will be addressed by the Galactic Assembly. Vexilorian's protest died, unspoken as the custodian turned its attention to Nystrom, Captain Valera Nystrom, first custodian of Earth's legacy arc. Your species stands at a crossroads. The knowledge contained within the arc is both gift and burden. How humanity chooses to use it will determine your place among the stars. Nystrom felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders, not just for the ship or the technology, but for humanity's future path. We understand the responsibility, she replied, and we're ready to accept it. The custodian studied her for a moment before responding. We shall see. 1 year after first contact, the Antarctic Research Station had transformed into Legacy City, a sprawling complex of laboratories, educational facilities, and diplomatic quarters where humans worked alongside representatives from 12 spacefaring civilizations. At its center stood the fully excavated Legacy Ark, now elevated on a platform of its own creation, its hull gleaming in the polar sunlight. Captain Nystrom, now bearing the official title First Custodian of Earth, stood on an observation deck overlooking the activity below. Her neural link with the ship had evolved, allowing her to process information at rates no unmodified human could achieve. Yet she had declined further enhancements, insisting that humanity should advance, together rather than creating a divided society. The Custodian Council is ready to begin, announced Lieutenant Abara, who had become Nystrom's chief aide in the transitional government. Nystrom nodded, turning away from the viewport. And our guests? All arrived. The Valkyrie representative seems uncomfortable. As well they should be, Nystrom replied with the hint of a smile. It's not every day you face judgment from species you once tried to suppress. The council chamber within the Legacy Ark had been designed for precisely this purpose, a neutral ground where representatives of various civilizations could meet as equals. The circular room contained 13 seats arranged around a central, holographic projector, 12 for the established spacefaring species and 1 for humanity. Professor Mahabir and Dr. Orlov were already present when Nystrom arrived, deep in conversation with a representative of the Zithri collective, a species that had achieved progenitor-heir status several thousand years earlier. The Zithri, with their crystalline exoskeletons and telepathic abilities, had become humanity's strongest advocates in the galactic community. First Custodian, the Zithri acknowledged, their mental voice resonating with respectful harmonics. We were just discussing the remarkable progress your species has made in adapting progenitor principles to your existing technology. Professor Mahabir deserves the credit, Nystrom replied. Her integration protocols have helped us advance without destabilizing our society. Mahabir had become Earth's foremost expert on translating progenitor knowledge into applications humanity could safely implement. Under her guidance, clean energy production had quadrupled worldwide, while medical breakthroughs were extending human lifespans and curing previously intractable diseases. The remaining representatives filed into the chamber, the insectoid Tresian, hive mind, the gaseous Vorlai consciousness, and others representing the diverse evolutionary paths life had taken throughout the galaxy. Last to enter was emissary Vexillorian, now serving as the Valkyrie representative to Earth after the Conclave's previous leadership had been removed, following revelations of their systematic suppression of developing civilizations. "This council is now in session," announced the senior custodian, a being of such advanced evolution that its true form was difficult for human perception to process. "Today we consider humanity's petition for recognition as a Level 2 civilization with full rights under the Ancient Accords." The implications were enormous. Level 2 status would grant humanity access to interstellar travel technology and full diplomatic standing in the galactic community. Only a year ago, humans hadn't known intelligent alien life existed. Now they stood on the threshold of joining a cosmic civilization that spanned multiple galaxies. "The petition requires unanimous approval," the senior custodian continued. "Each representative will state their position." One by one, the alien representatives gave their verdicts. The Zithri supported humanity unreservedly. The Tresian hive mind expressed cautious approval, citing humanity's rapid technological adaptation. The Vorlai consciousness abstained, which counted as tacit acceptance under the Ancient Accords. All eyes turned to Vexillorian when the Valkyrie's turn came. The once arrogant emissary had been humbled by the Conclave's disgrace, but remained proud and somewhat resentful. "The Valkyrie Conclave recognizes humanity's progenitor inheritance," Vexillorian stated formally. "However, we question whether sufficient time has passed to ensure responsible usage of Level 2 technologies. Humanity's history contains concerning patterns of conflict and resource exploitation." A murmur ran through the chamber. It wasn't an outright rejection, but raising such concerns could delay humanity's ascension by decades under the Ancient Accords. Nystrom had anticipated this move. "If I may address the concern," she said, stepping forward into the center of the chamber. The senior custodian gestured permission. "The first custodian of Earth may speak." "The Valkyrie emissary's concerns about humanity's past are valid," Nystrom began, surprising many in the chamber. "We have fought wars over resources, ideology, and territory. We have damaged our planet's ecosystems and driven species to extinction. These facts are undeniable." Vexillorian's multifaceted eyes narrowed, clearly suspicious of Nystrom's agreement. "However," she continued, "what defines a civilization is not its mistakes, but how it learns from them. In the year since discovering our progenitor inheritance, humanity has demonstrated unprecedented unity and purpose." She gestured, and the central holographic projector displayed Earth as seen from orbit. Where once political boundaries had dominated the view, now vast green corridors connected restored ecosystems. Clean energy networks glowed like luminous webs across continents. "We have eliminated fossil fuel dependency," Nystrom reported. "Reversed climate change mechanisms, established global protocols for implementing advanced technologies with ethical safeguards. Most importantly, we've created the Earth Consensus, a new form of collaborative governance that transcends our old divisions." Dr. Orloff stood, adding his perspective. "As the one who first discovered the Legacy Arc's hidden logs, I was deeply concerned about how humanity would handle such advanced knowledge. Our history suggested we might weaponize it or hoard it for advantage." He smiled slightly. "Instead, we've proven the progenitor's faith in us was justified. Knowledge from the Legacy Arc has been shared equally across all nations, Former adversaries now collaborate on implementation projects. The very existence of advanced civilizations has given humanity a new perspective on our place in the cosmos. Professor Mahabir rose next. The legacy arc contained not just technological knowledge but philosophical frameworks, evolutionary guideposts left by the progenitors. These have helped us channel our natural human curiosity and innovation in constructive directions. We aren't seeking Level 2 status to exploit new frontiers, but to contribute our unique perspectives to the galactic community. Vexillorian remained unconvinced. Pretty words. But humans were killing each other over religious and territorial disputes mere decades ago. Such ingrained behaviors don't change so quickly. On the contrary, came a new voice from the chamber. Entrance. Admiral Tadakoro entered, accompanied by representatives from Earth's former rival power blocks. Facing existential threats has a way of clarifying priorities, emissary. The Admiral approached the center of the chamber. When the Valkyrie first arrived, Earth's nations were prepared to fight each other for control of the legacy arc. Instead, we chose cooperation. When offered individual advancement through neural enhancement, our leaders refused until the technology could be safely adapted for all. These aren't merely political decisions. They represent a fundamental shift in human consciousness. The senior custodian considered these arguments in silence. Finally, it addressed Vexillorian directly. The concerns you raise were anticipated by the progenitors themselves. Each legacy arc contains safeguards that prevent access to technologies a species is not ethically prepared to handle. That humanity has unlocked as much of the arc as it has in a single year suggests an unprecedented compatibility with progenitor ideals. Vexillorian's skin flushed with colors that suggested frustration, but the emissary ultimately bowed in acquiescence. The Valkyrie withdraw their objection. A sense of momentous occasion filled the chamber as the senior custodian rose to its full height, towering over the assembled representatives. By unanimous consent of the Custodian Council, humanity is hereby recognized as a Level 2 civilization under the Ancient Accords. Earth is officially designated as a progenitor heir world, with all associated rights and responsibilities. The announcement triggered celebrations across Earth as it was transmitted globally. Humanity had taken its first official step into a larger universe. After the formal proceedings, Nystrom found herself alone with Vexillorian in one of the Legacy Arc's observation chambers. The Valkyrie studied her with a mixture of curiosity and lingering resentment. "You must be proud," the emissary said at last. "Your species has accomplished in 1 year what took the Valkyrie centuries." "It's not a competition," Nystrom replied, evenly. "Different evolutionary paths lead to different rates of advancement." An admirable sentiment, Vexillorian noted with a hint of sarcasm. "But you should know that not all species in the galactic community share the custodian's benevolent outlook. There are factions that view progenitor technology as a means to power rather than enlightenment." Nystrom nodded slowly. "Like the Valkyrie conclave before its reformation?" "Precisely." Vexillorian's tone grew serious. "The conclave's fall from grace has created a power vacuum. Others will seek to fill it. Others who may view your rapidly advancing species as either a threat or an opportunity to exploit. Is that a warning or a threat, emissary?" "Merely an observation, First Custodian. Humanity has been fortunate thus far. The Custodian's intervention was unexpected. Such protection may not always be available." Before Nystrom could respond, Lieutenant Ibarra interrupted with an urgent communication. "Captain, First Custodian, we're detecting unusual activity from the Legacy Arc's deep space monitoring systems." Nystrom excused herself and hurried to the ship's command center, where Mahabir and Orlov were already analyzing the data. "It's some kind of dimensional anomaly," Mahabir explained, gesturing to the displays. "According to the Arc's records, It's consistent with a progenitor slip space portal. That's impossible, Orlov objected. The progenitors disappeared over 100,000 years ago. The anomaly grew larger on their monitors, a swirling vortex of energy forming just beyond Mars's orbit. The custodian vessels moved to intercept it, but maintained a defensive rather than offensive posture. First custodian, the senior custodian, communicated directly to Nystrom's mind. What you are witnessing has occurred only twice before in recorded history. Prepare yourself. A vessel emerged from the vortex. Massive beyond comprehension, its design so advanced it barely registered as technology to human perception. It resembled a living constellation more than a ship, points of light connected by flowing energy, conduits that shifted and realigned continuously. By the stars, Mahabir whispered. Is that a true progenitor vessel? Confirmed the senior custodian's voice. They have returned. Silence fell across Earth as the implications sank in. The progenitors, the species believed extinct for millennia, who had seeded countless worlds and created the legacy arcs, had somehow returned at precisely the moment humanity achieved recognition. A transmission reached Earth, bypassing all conventional communication systems and manifesting directly in the minds of every human simultaneously. The message was simple, yet profound. You have awakened. We have returned. The great work continues. In that moment, Captain Valera Nystrom understood that humanity's discovery of the legacy arc hadn't been mere chance. It had been the first step in a journey planned eons ago, a journey that was only now truly beginning. The Valkyries' attempt to claim the ship hadn't been the end of the story. It had been merely the prologue.